What's going on? Today I want to talk a little bit about the Amazing Race Australia. I went on a vacation with my family to the Philippines this year, around from March to April, and during my time there, I figured that I would watch one of my favorite TV shows, particularly one centered around traveling. And that show in question is The Amazing Race Australia, where I've watched and caught up with every season. So, which brings me here today to rank every single one from worst to best. Since there's a new season coming up, I figured I would take the time to rank every season of The Amazing Race Australia. Before I begin, I should clarify that there will be some mild spoilers for each of them. I'll of course try not to spoil the winner of each season, but there might be some teams that I will name drop that have a huge presence in that particular season. So that's something you might want to keep in mind when watching through this ranking. But with that out of the way, I'm starting off this ranking with Season 4 being my least favourite. This one was kind of... The season for last place for me was a little tough for me to rank since it's between 4 and the next season after, but I decided to go with Season 4 because there is a bunch of issues that I have with it. So this season came out in 2019. It serves sort of as a revival of the show that was cancelled in 2014 that aired in Channel 7 that got cancelled in 2014 due to low ratings. So Channel 10 picked the show up, which meant this is the 4th season of The Amazing Race Australia overall, with a completely new host. And for a rebooted season, it is quite flawed. One of the biggest problems I have with it is really some of the leg design. Is that some of the leg design is a little clunky. The biggest elephant in the room has to be the must vote U-turn board at the second to last leg. This is something that is quite infamous within the Amazing Race community. So many people have criticized this twist. It just sort of came out of nowhere, and I have to agree. The producers clearly wanted the team gone, which was like the strongest team at the time, because throughout this race there was this one team that was dominating the entire race up to that point, and the producers saw this and knew for sure that they were obviously going to win the whole race. They must have saw this as potentially decreasing the viewership in the finale, so what they did is they have this U-turn board at the penultimate leg, which forces the teams to all vote for who they want to U-turn, knowing for sure that the other three teams will all vote to U-turn them. I don't think there's any season of the American version at the very least, or any version of the Amazing Race in that matter, that has a U-turn or a yield this late into the race. And I don't think that there should be one at the second to last leg. I just think that having a U-turn or a yield to decide who gets to be in the finale or not is a little unfair. So this was just a really bad twist. Not only that, but there are some bad luck based challenges that resulted in a couple of teams that I liked getting the boot. Well, there is a couple of teams I do like in this season. I find most of the cast pretty bland, and even my favorite teams just end up getting out early anyway due to the aforementioned clunky leg design or the bad luck challenges, or just due to bad luck. Because of which, I had absolutely no teams to root for in the finale, and I found the finale itself pretty underwhelming, aside from it being set in Australia. The route is okay, and I don't think it's bad by any stretch. I think it is easily better than I think it is better than the next season up, the season that came after it. It's also still underwhelming. Like they only travel to two continents, three if you count Australia in the finale, where they stay in Asia and then they go to Africa and then they go back to Asia again. So not exactly the most amazing route in any version of the Amazing Race. I think the season had a pretty strong start for the first couple legs, but I think the season just sort of lost its steam, like halfway through. And another thing I really dislike about this season and pretty much every other season that came after this one is the rewards for coming in first and just how inconsistent it is. And I understand that when you transfer a show to another network, there are some budget cuts need to be made, but still, it feels just kind of unfair that a team can come in first all the time, but not get anything for coming in first for most of the time. Like it's pretty ridiculous that one team can earn like $1,000 at most for winning like 7 or 8 legs, but yet another team that actually does end up winning a leg for once gets a vacation or two, and also for the fact that they're not in every single leg. So that's a bummer. In 7th place is my second least favorite, has to be season 5. So about this one, this was entirely filmed during COVID, when the entire world was on lockdown, or was like getting out of lockdown. So it is filmed entirely in Australia, and it was the only season. I think it was the only Amazing Race season to have aired back in 2021. However, I do sort of have, like season 4, I do have quite a lot of problems with this one. The most obvious being that it's simply just too long. There's just too many episodes and way too many non-elimination legs. It just made the race more of a slog to sit through. Like season 4, I think season 5 had a pretty strong start at first for like the first like 5 or 6 legs, but once you get used to all the gimmicks and stuff, it quickly loses its steam and just again becomes more boring and tedious to watch when all my favorite teams are eliminated. Yeah, so the tasks and the gimmicks, even the locations, which again is due to COVID, it just all became repetitive as the race went on, especially when they travel to the same location 2 or even 3 times. Another thing I also don't like about the Amazing Race Australia seasons post season 4 is the penalty times. The penalty times are just ridiculously small. I'm talking about 10 minutes for quitting a roadblock, like 10 to 15 minutes, which is just quite ridiculous to me. Like before the show got rebooted, quitting a roadblock resulted in a 4-hour penalty, and honestly I could understand if they want to reduce that down to like 2 hours or 1 hour, but 10 minutes is just ridiculous. Like It's just ludicrous. It's just like, why bother doing the challenge if it's just quicker to just not do it. Another thing I don't like is that throughout the second half of the race, there's this really annoying toxic alliance between the teams, which which I know alliances have always been a thing in reality TV shows, like in Amazing Race, but also in like Survivor and Big Brother and stuff. But here it just really feels like cliquey schoolyard bullying. It just became really hard to watch. It just made the second half of the season really hard to watch and just really unbearable. Like I wasn't even like a huge fan of the targeted team like before the alliance, but like seeing how the team the the teams in the alliance acted, as well as like how they acted on the social media at the time, it just made me feel really bad for the team they're targeting. It just kind of made me wish they would kind of made me hope that they would just destroy this alliance and just win the whole thing. But yeah. Despite this, however, one of the reasons why I put this season above season 4 is really just because of the cast. I really enjoy a lot more teams in this season compared to the last, and I think they would have worked a whole lot better if they competed in a regular sized season. And even how long and drawn out the race was, I still think it had a pretty decent finale, and a winner I think was well deserved. This was the season that's the most accessible to me since it was on YouTube. It's on YouTube, but with more as I watched more seasons, I can just admit that this one has a lot of negative things holding this season back, like the route only being in Australia, um, like it's too many legs, too many non-elimination legs. The first class pass pretty much diminishes the suspense of the leg being a non-elimination one. The prizes being inconsistent as always. All the gimmicks and tasks just became more and more repetitive as the race goes on. The penalty times been yeah been ridiculously small, and as well as just a really annoying, ugly alliance that just kind of ruins the whole vibe for me. It's basically this season just feels like the real life version of the Redonkulous race. Just kind of like how Survivor Carbon kind of felt like the real life version of Total Drama Island. Up next in sixth place is I have season 6. Just like season 5, this is another COVID season. Except this time they're allowed to travel outside of Australia due to the borders opening up. I know a lot of people don't like this season and think it's just as bad as the first two that came before it, but I actually quite like this season in a way. First off, the route is so much better. It's a huge step up from the first two seasons, and they travel to all 6 continents. Like the diversity in the locations, such as in Belize and Morocco. Not just that, I also love the cast. I really like the diversity in all the teams. There's no team here that I actively dislike, unlike in season 5, which made the season much easier to watch for me compared to 5. Also for the fact that this is actually the first modern Amazing Race season I ever watched, because it aired in my country. Like Amazing Race Australia like airs where I live. So once I watched this one, it made me want to go back and rewatch some of the older seasons to just kind of catch up on things. But just like season 5, this season 6 has a lot of problems going against it. The obvious one being, again, too many episodes, like too many legs. Although it is a little bit less in Season 5, but still there's just way too many of them. There's also just way too many teams. Like I'm talking about 20 teams. I think if they're gonna have that amount of teams, they should have had like the two groups merge, two groups of teams merge much later in the race when like half of them are gone. Because when you have when you have 18 plus teams on screen together, it gets really chaotic. Like there's just not enough screen time to develop every single team because once they're eliminated, you pretty much don't know anything about them. Like a team can just be eliminated just before you even get the chance to know them, know their backstories. The tasks are also quite underwhelming, especially in the finale. Since this is a COVID season, some teams ended up catching COVID and are forced out of the race to self-isolate. But having the race continue on without the COVID teams is extremely unfair for both the competing teams and the quarantined teams. Like I would have preferred it if they just paused the race until like each of the quarantined teams get better. It's just not fair that some teams can just drop out of the race while the others just continue on, and then forcing the isolated teams to complete a speed bump immediately after being released from self-isolation gives those teams just absolutely zero chance to catch up. It's like, what's the point of competing when you can just fake a COVID test and just not show up until the finale? Despite how underwhelming the finale is, I still think that the winner was well deserved, even if they aren't my pick to win. Given their heartfelt and emotional story, I just think their win was well deserved. So yeah, while I don't necessarily hate this season, there is quite a lot holding it back that I just cannot place this any higher. This is just as high as I'm going to put it, sadly. So up next is Season 8, which is the Celebrity Edition season. Unlike the other seasons I talked about, this one is mainly a regular size season with just only 11 teams, like 10 or so legs. Kind of just the way I like it, basically. This is the second celebrity season because the one that came before it is another celebrity one. I think it's pretty good. I think the casting in season 7 is a little bit better, but the teams we have here is pretty solid. I'd say the route in season 8 is better than in season 7 since they traveled to more countries, more continents. If there's one bad thing I would have to say about it though is that there's some rules in like the detour that I think is a little bit weird. So what they have here is that if one side of the detour is full, then any new teams cannot choose that side of the detour. I do think that's a little unfair, because what if one team wants to do one side of the detour that they think they can do much better in, but they can't because every other team is on there doing it. And then so they're forced to choose the side of the detour that they don't want to do, and that could potentially make them lose the race. I kind of understand that they probably did that just so that each side of the detour can actually be done, can actually be attempted. And that's kind of something that with especially the more modern Amazing Race seasons, that there'll usually be one side of the detour that's significantly more easier to do than the other, which results in the other side of the detour just not being attempted at all. But realistically, if they want to fix that issue, they should just make both sides of the detour equal in difficulty. And there's also quite a lot of eating challenges in this season, and also in quite a lot of number other modern Amazing Race Australia seasons. I don't think that's much of a big deal as the other things I mentioned, but that's kind of something I noticed. Overall, I don't have much things to say about the season except I think it's quite a solid season. Yeah, it's a pretty enjoyable season, all things considered. Which leads me into the next season I have on this list, and that's season 7, coming in 4th place. This is the first of the Celebrity Edition seasons for the Amazing Race Australia, and I think this was a nice return to form in some cases. It keeps things simple. They got rid of the whole 20 teams, 100 legs, all the a dozen non-elimination legs, and all the gimmicks and stuff. And they just came back with a regular season with 11 teams, 11 legs or so. This was my favorite season for a while, and it was back when I was still watching most of the modern Amazing Race seasons. And that was before I watched this season before I went on vacation. I went on my vacation, and before I went back to rewatch the older seasons. So I do have some attachment to it, but I decided to put season 7 below the first 3 seasons, simply for the fact that I think the route is a little underwhelming. It's only limited. The route is limited only in Asia, and which kind of made me wish that they traveled to more countries outside of Asia. But that's really the only downside I have with season 7. What sells the season for me is the cast. I love pretty much all the teams in this season. My favorite teams in this season actually ended up being in the finale. And speaking of the finale, I won't spoil the ending for this season, but I can surely tell you that it is extremely heartwarming. I couldn't have asked for a better ending, and the ending itself just kind of solidified the season as one of my favorites for me. And I can understand why the show did its very hardest to not have that ending repeat ever again in the next season. Yeah, overall, I absolutely loved this season. It actually kind of restored a little bit of revitalized my love for the show, and I actually do despite this being a celebrity edition season with Australia celebrities that I mostly know nothing about, I actually do recognize some of the teams here from another show that I watched. So coming in at 3rd place for me is season 3. This is the last season to have aired on the show's original network, Channel 7, before its cancellation. This season's entire gimmick is that there's 5 Australia teams and then there's 5 New Zealand teams facing off. But despite this gimmick, it still felt like a regular season, and the nation versus nation rivalry was almost non-existent here. Unlike what people would say about the season being a flop or whatever, it's actually pretty good. I enjoyed it quite a lot. It's nice that it travelled to all 6 continents. While I do think the cast in the first 2 seasons were much better, I do think the cast here is pretty good. I do think it could probably benefit from having 1 extra team from each country, as well as a couple more legs. But overall, still a pretty good season. I couldn't really care less about the winner, but that's really just me personally. So coming in at 2nd place, my second favourite Australia season is season 1, the very first one, back in 2011. I like this because, again, like season 3, this has I absolutely love the cast, and I also like how in the earlier seasons, at the very least, they mainly cast mostly ordinary people. you'll have people like farmers, grocery workers, your typical sibling family teams. Like Sam and Renee may be models, but they actually work regular jobs. That's something that's mostly been kind of missing in a lot of modern Amazing Race seasons. If you watch the Asian version of the Amazing Race, you'll come to notice that all the tasks in this season, in the first two Australia seasons, are all recycled from the Asian version. Well, that might be seen as a negative for some people. I still find them fun to watch here, so I can't really complain about that. Once again, the route is also excellent. This is the first season, the first English speaking season of the any version of the Amazing Race that travelled to Israel. So that's a first. Yeah, overall, pretty fun season with memorable characters, memorable teams, and pretty satisfying finale. I just think the season after this one just completely overshadows it by a long shot. And speaking of which, the season at the very top of my list, my personal favourite season of the Amazing Race Australia, has to be season 2. I think people that watched the show would see this one coming from a long mile away. It's considered to be the fan favourite season by the Amazing Race community, and I have to agree. It is such an iconic and classic season. You have an amazing cast of teams, just like the first one, and every single one of them are all iconic and memorable. You have the alpha male villainy of Paul and Steve. You have Sarah, with her like trademark hunters. She's just really hilarious throughout the race, especially with her banter with her partner James, like her partner at the time. And you of course have Lucy and Amelia narrowly escaping elimination in every single leg. The route is amazing, of course. It's also I think it's also the first Amazing Race season to travel to Cuba, which was a country that the American version has not traveled to. I don't think they have traveled to yet to this day. This is also the season that I have quite vague memories of watching, because I used to be very big on. I used to be a very big Amazing Race fan back in the late 2000s and the early 2010s. Like I watched the American version, like I think it was like season 15 and season 16 of the American versions. That was back like in 2009 and 2010. And then the Amazing Races Australia got their own version of the Amazing Race, and like I watched the first 2 seasons of that that version. I don't know if I watched season 3. Well, I probably might have, but that might have been a long time ago. And yeah, I used to remember, I have vague memories for some of the teams there, like the cheerleader twins with Michelle and Joe, and of course Paul and Steve being the main villains of the whole season. Like I also remember some of the tasks they performed, and that's how much of a memorable season this it just goes to show how iconic and memorable the season really was. With the exception of one team in particular, I generally love all the teams, all the cast. The finale I think is also satisfying. It had a pretty good like sort of underdog winner tale in a way. Yeah, it's just I like everything about this season, and that's why it's at the top of my list. So going back to the upcoming new season of the Amazing Race Australia, we have what it seems to be the entire cast, all 13 teams, and it's also another celebrity edition. I know I know a lot of people seem to be disappointed that this is another celebrity cast. They kind of want another like season with regular people. I honestly don't have a problem with this at all. I actually, unlike the previous Celebrity Edition season, I actually recognize some of the teams here. So, and those are the teams I'm going to be rooting for. Since there is 13 teams, I'm getting the vibe that this might be a season with no non-elimination legs, just like the more recent American seasons. Which means that if you're last, then that's it. You're out. You don't have any second chances. I also heard that there's going to be a new twist known as the duel or face-off. I think that's present in the Canadian version, as far as I'm aware. So I'm also interested into how that's gonna play out. The route, I'm actually pretty excited for to see this route. It's the first season to visit Uzbekistan. I think that's how you pronounce it. Sorry for butchering that pronunciation for anyone living there. But it's also the first Australia season to visit Nepal and Taiwan. It seems like they're most likely going to stay within Asia, from the looks of it. That might be just like the second, like season 7, the first Celebrity Edition. But unlike over there where it's just like 3 countries they travel to, they seem to travel to at least 5 countries here, so I'm at least a little more excited for this one. But overall, yeah, that's just my ranking of all the seasons for The Amazing Race Australia. Had a pretty strong like first few seasons, and then had a bit of like a wobbly like middle era with 4, 5, and 6. But I will admit that the Celebrity Edition seasons actually revitalized and rejuvenate my interest and love for the show. Yeah, I'm not bothered at all that this is another Celebrity Edition season. I'd much prefer it over the last few seasons before them. Like if they decide to do a regular season again, I really just hope it's not like 100 leagues long with like 100 teams with like 100 episodes, cause I don't think anybody wants that. While I was on my vacation, I also watched the Asian version, so I might probably do a ranking of that version of The Amazing Race, and I'll just see where I'll go from there. But until then, I'll see you guys next time.